Jeremiah, why is there a FastMCP 3?
FastMCP 2 has been a fantastic way for us to keep up with what's going on in the MCP world and move as quickly as that world is going. But it also means that it hasn't had the benefit of as much design thought and framework thought as I would like it to have as a framework. And so it's essentially grown unboundedly and organically for the last year. And in stepping back and in working with some of the larger enterprises that are now onboarding on some of our products, it's become apparent that there are things that they want to do that feel like small changes, but are actually large changes because there's not a core central way that FastMCP2 works. And so we started really just rethinking how should you build a MCP framework in 2026 as opposed to 2025. In 2025, it was all about what is the developer experience that people encounter. And in 2026, it's all about how do you make this scalable and flexible and customizable. And so the kernel of FastMCP3 started with re-examining the entire backend of FastMCP2 and stripping it all out and replacing it with what we're calling a provider. And a provider, I don't know how technical we need to get right now, but a provider is basically a very easy way to say, this is where my tools, my resources, and my prompts come from. And you plug as many providers as you want into a server, and then the server takes on the responsibility of delivering them to users and wrapping them with auth and all of that. And so what this did is it took 5 or 6 different backends that existed in FastMCP2 as entirely distinct sleeves: the OpenAPI backend, the proxy server backend, the mounted server backend, even the local server backend. They were all completely different code paths with completely different logic, duplicated many times. And instead, now they are all very small implementations of this provider protocol. There's a proxy provider, an OpenAPI provider, and this lets us do all kinds of cool stuff. We're working with a very large company that wants to derive their tool definitions from a database as the source of truth without turning the server on or off every single time. So this would have been a whole end-to-end build in FastMCP2. With FastMCP3, we were able to deliver them maybe 30 lines of code where they make a SQL query off to their server, they bring it back, they configure their tool based on that, and they return it, which is super cool. We can do file system-based servers now, which is something that I think you have way more affinity for than I do. I think that's kind of crazy because I'm a Python person, but you like crazy things.
It's as much as I'm a Python person, I still have to write a lot of TypeScript, and I just that's one part of the developer experience for TypeScript I've always loved.
It's funny, we were going back and forth. I opened the first PR for that. This is basically instead of attaching every tool to your server, you write the tools in files, you put them wherever you want that makes sense to you, and then the provider automatically discovers them and sort of compiles the server for you. And the whole time I'm building this, I'm like, this makes no sense, but people seem to want it, especially if they come from a Next.js kind of mentality. And then after we built it, I have to be honest, I finally stepped back and I was like, oh, there's a real advantage here, which is I don't have to couple all of these files together, right? Because when you decorate a function to say it's a tool of your server, you need the server object in that file. Or conversely, you need to import the tool into your server file. Somehow the two things need to talk to each other. And so I did appreciate that through this, you can separate them. I don't think I'm going to use it, but I do think that there are some folks out there
I will definitely be using it.
who are going to use it. And then there's other cool things that providers let us do that's a lot easier than, again, huge code paths in FastMCP2, like namespacing a server. So when we mount servers, we try to give them little prefixes so that you don't have tool collisions and stuff. That's a lot of complicated code and resolution the server has to know about. Now we just have a provider whose only job is to take another provider and add a prefix to everything, almost like a middleware that's a lot more observable and controllable. We can have providers that add search tools. We can have providers that add semantic search tools. We can have providers that add agents that live over another provider and help you access it. So there's so much that we can do now with very little code by adopting this cohesive backend. So that's how we decided something big needs to happen in FastMCP 3. And that was the first few weeks of work, working with some of these companies and really seeing the light bulbs go off over their heads is what frankly made me say oh, wow, we should really lean in and explore this. But the scope of those changes is extremely significant. We are doing everything we can to minimize breaking changes. I think I was looking at the list today. We've introduced so far 4 breaking changes, of which I think 2 were already deprecated. but they were deprecated recently, so I still consider them.
It should be changes. A pretty smooth transition.
I think the vast majority of users will have no issue. You have to be using very advanced FastMCP2 functionality to hit a breaking change. I'll put it that way. You have to be doing like all kinds of weird like tool level toggling, because those are the APIs we move to the providers. I'm really excited about this. And then like there's all this stuff that we're doing in the front end of it as well. All these little niceties. I added automatic reloading, like hot reloading for servers, for development servers earlier. It's just all these things that people have been asking for so long that we just haven't quite really like taken the time to go and implement. Trying to add better like mocking and tooling. We're thinking of looking at some of the requests for authorization with a decorator. So you could say like this tool requires these scopes. Looking at some stuff around namespacing and progressive disclosure now that more providers like Claude Code support tool notifications and tool change notifications. There's always like richness that's come into play. And when I step back for a second, I think of FastMCP2 as the place where we nailed all of the things people need to do in the MCP world. So like auth was such a massive feature of FastMCP2. And today it's like, of course, like you literally are not allowed to ship servers to Claude and ChatGPT unless they're authenticated. So like, of course you need auth. Like that feels so table stakes now, but it was so much of our effort in FastMCP2 was how do we bring these massive things to bear? And now with FastMCP3, it's really like, well, what's the ecosystem? How is it evolving? What are all these cool things? Every week there's a new blog post about someone's got a new way to optimize MCP or turn it into skills or serve skills over MCP or whatever it is. And I think we want to be in a place where every time we implement one of those experiments in FastMCP, it doesn't feel like a new code branch, a new way of working, a new top-level method. It just feels like, of course it works that way. That's how the framework is designed. So I'm really excited that we're getting to that point.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. I called you up a couple weeks ago, and I was like, these provider changes are going to be big enough that, and like wide-ranging enough. I think they need to be a 3. How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling great. I think the thing I'm most excited for providers is just like the server authorship. Honestly, just feeling like it gets a lot easier. Where like I think before it was so important for us to pay. Like I saw the motivation a lot for FastMCP2 as how do we build the most like idiomatic Pythonic experience for building MCP servers, and then. I don't think what we anticipated at the time was that Python was going to be the language in which most servers, like 80% of MCP servers across all languages, are implemented in. And so we've just like created such a wide tent of folks that are authoring MCP servers. You have folks that have been like lifelong TypeScript people. Well, maybe not lifelong, like 5-year-long TypeScript people. Career-long TypeScript folks. You've got career-long C# folks, and they are all rallying around Python as the language to author MCP servers. But of course, like those languages have advantages over Python, and there are some designs that they want to carry over. And so I think that if FastMCP2 was about like how do you make an actual home for Python folks to author MCP servers. Now that we have folks from other languages that are, picking up Python to write their MCP servers, how do we let authorship feel more idiomatic for some of the patterns that they're trying to bring to? And so anyway, so that's I think the thing that I'm most excited for of just building like a wider tent of patterns for folks to actually build servers.
Yeah, along those lines, I've also been thinking a lot more around like, what does it mean to test an MCP server? How do you test an MCP server? How do you spin up one knowing you're going to test it? I'm actually talking with some folks based here in DC, and you can imagine where they're all working, who are very focused on correctness and testing of MCP servers that they want to use to release public data sets, for example. And so that's a major thing right now. And it's not just from folks who are coming to Python, but it's also for folks in the ecosystem. Like, how do you gain confidence that your server is doing what it's supposed to do is something I think we can have more of an opinion about. And then I keep coming back to, more often than not, you and I will bounce ideas off each other. More you bouncing an idea off me if we're honest. You're like, we should do this or we should do this. And I'm like, yeah, but it's so much work. And so I have this private motivation to make it easier to experiment. with a more sane framework backend so that we can just sort of see what cool things are without having to sort of reinvent a universe around them.
That's great.
Tell us a little bit about the whole PyAI conference, what it is, when it is, who it is. What should people know?
Let me start with when it is. It is March 10th in San Francisco in the sort of iconic Ferry Building. It is basically like the hallmarks of Python developers coming together to kind of share what's working, what's not, and what's next. We got Guido van Rossum, the creator of Python. We've got Sebastian Ramirez from FastMCP's. Of course, we're co-hosting with Samuel Colvin of Pydantic. We've got a great list of speakers and just a great list of sponsors. And so that's all coming together March 10th in San Francisco. It's building off of an event series that we've been doing city by city. Had hundreds of folks attend across San Francisco, New York, and London. And so we're just like taking a lot of the electricity that we've gotten from those community events and really staking a very large 300-person community event in SF. And so it's an all-day event. It's going to be 2 tracks. We're going to have dozens of speakers, of practitioners and builders, not trying to like sell people on stuff, but really just kind of like a sobering take on if you're trying to build systems, AI systems in Python, how can we shortcut each other towards things that we know work and things that maybe we should avoid. And so that's all coming to a head on March 10th in San Francisco.
It's been really cool to see. Obviously, almost every city has some version of a Python or AI or both meetup at the sort of local level, but it's been really cool to see this now at even the international level. I was going to say national. It's the international now is where we've sort of taken this brand, this format, this style, this, I don't know, cultural ethos. I don't know what we should call it, but I couldn't be happier seeing how this has rolled out and seeing people's response to it. It's been really amazing.
You want to check it out? It's pyai.events.
Well done to you and Samuel and the whole team.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I gotta say, I feel like Python has always been like the hackers' language, and like it's unsurprising that the folks that are really pushing the envelope on what you can do with agents are choosing Python to author it. And I think that so Python has always just been the community that I think we look to when we're like basically trying to understand like a new business logic primitive like agents. And so it's been really cool to see that community come out in full force.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
So that's it, folks. We'll catch you next time.